What's up, you guys? My name is Grace Lauren Taylor, and you are listening to episode 23 of the Trauma Dump Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Here at the Trauma Dump Podcast, we seek to answer the question, what is mental health? How do I take care of my own, and how do I support others? This week, we will be discussing the topic of trauma and attachment, otherwise known as attachment theory. We're going to be talking about how trauma affects our attachment styles. Attachment theory was developed in the 1960s and 70s by British psychologist John Bowlby and American-Canadian psychologist Mary Ainsworth. Our guest of the week is Talia from the Dating Intentionally podcast. Go check out her podcast. Go check out her Instagram. The links are in the description. Her Instagram is dating.intentionally. So please show her some love for being on this podcast. Remember, if you'd like to share on the show, please message us in the podcast Discord server, along with your unique experiences, and we will match you to the right episode. Just a quick disclaimer before we start. I am not a licensed health professional, and I'll never claim to be, though we do have a lot of licensed health professionals on this podcast. This podcast only seeks to create community and further understanding of difficult topics that are so often overlooked and extremely misunderstood. If you or a loved one are in need of medical professional help, we have resources in the description. The topics discussed here are for a mature audience, so viewer discretion is always advised. So attachment theory was coined in the late 1960s, 1970s. It describes different attachment styles. So attachment styles are characterized by different ways of interacting and behaving in relationships. During early childhood development, these attachment styles are centered around how children and parents interact with one another. In adulthood, attachment styles are used to describe patterns of attachment in romantic relationships. The concept of attachment styles grew out of attachment theory and research that emerged throughout the 60s and 70s. Today, psychologists typically recognize four main attachment styles, and we're going to be delving into those four main attachment styles and some others, because a lot of people actually have different attachment styles with different people, or different attachment styles with different genders because of how their parents interacted with them. Attachment is a special emotional relationship that involves the exchange of comfort, care, and pleasure. The roots of research on attachment began with Freud's theories about love, but another researcher is actually credited as the father of attachment theory. John Bowlby devoted extensive research to the concept of attachment, describing it as lasting psychological connectiveness between human beings. Bowlby shared the psychoanalytic view that early experiences in childhood are important for influencing development and behavior later on in life. Our early attachment styles are established through childhood through the infant-caregiver relationship. In addition to this, Bowlby believed that attachment had an evolutionary component as it aids in our survival. The propensity to make strong emotional bonds to particular individuals is a basic component of human nature, he explained. Ainsworth defined three main types of attachment, but later researchers added a fourth type. These main types of attachment are secure attachment, anxious/insecure attachment, avoidant/insecure attachment, disorganized/insecure attachment. But yes, hello, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. I have a fellow podcaster on my podcast. So excited.
Yeah.
I've listened to some of your podcasts. I love them. They're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I've always wanted to have a podcast, and I was like, let's just use my dating life as fodder.
It's
Thank you.
Great. Key takes. I love them. Also, Gigi wants to say hi.
She's making the face.
Hi.
He
Oh,
said,
hi,
Gigi.
Gigi. Oh, that's very sweet. How old is she?
She is 7. She just turned 7.
Wow.
So everyone thinks she's a puppy. She's not. She's old lady baby.
Oh, old lady baby. I like that.
Because she's still my baby, but she's old.
Yeah. Coconut's my dog's 5.
I want to see Coconut.
You want to see Coco? Come here, honey.
Yes, yes.
I can lift her up because she's 11 pounds. This is Coco. She's from Mexico. Yeah.
I love you, Coconut.
Maybe will you sit here on my lap nicely?
Oh my goodness. I haven't had a small dog since I was in high school. I love small dogs.
Yeah, she's easy.
Gigi is just so big. Yeah. She's so big. Okay, so we're talking about attachment styles today, which is very exciting. So we're gonna go to the top of my little thingy. There we go. Okay. Hello, welcome to the show. It is great to have you here. Before we start the episode, I would just like to address how you would want to be referred to as, your name, your pronouns. Just give a little quick introductory to yourself to our guests.
I'm Talia. My pronouns are she, her. I am from New York City and I live in California. And wow. That's a little sliver of me.
How is it living in California when you're from New York City?
I live in a bunch of places. California is lovely. The weather's lovely. It's different than New York, which I can appreciate, but it's challenging at times as well, socially. Mm-hmm. It's just different. I'm just getting used to it. I only moved here 4 months ago.
Okay, so it's a new.
So I'm new, yeah.
Interesting.
That's wait, where cool. Are you based?
I'm in Texas.
Nice.
I have technically lived here all my life, which, it's a vibe. But my heart is not in Texas. My heart is in Jamaica, where my family is from. Every time we visit, I feel very much at home. My hair actually gets curlier. I feel very excited. And, Jamaica is very much a third world country, but I love it. I love it there.
That's amazing. What part of Texas are you in?
I'm in Dallas.
Love it. I'm going to San Antonio this weekend. So.
Oh, exciting. Yeah. Exciting. I have a lot of friends in San Antonio. Yeah, Dallas is becoming California, honestly. There are so many people from California moving to Dallas. It's a lot. And it's bringing our rent prices up a lot. So I'm not excited about that, but love the people, but just stop.
Yeah. It's like, stop coming here. Just leave you alone.
Yeah. Rent. I don't know what rent is like in California, but now rent for a 2-bedroom apartment here in Texas, it used to be like 5-6 years ago, it used to be around probably 1,100 and now it's 2,000. So
it's higher in California, but coming from New York, I didn't bat an eye, so it's hard. I'm like, I don't know what's normal. I only know the most expensive places to live at this point.
Yeah.
That's a jump though.
It is a jump. Sorry, an ant bit my toe today and it really hurts.
The nerve
of ants. We have so many ants in Texas and we have so many different types of ants and there's no way to get rid of them. They're everywhere. But yes, we have segued into ants. So I just wanted to ask if you're comfortable discussing your personal experiences.
Yes, that's why I'm here. I am comfortable.
Vibes.
Hopefully people can learn from them.
Yes. And to make sure I'm not crossing any of your boundaries and respecting your experiences, please feel free to interrupt me at any time if you feel uncomfortable or triggered. We can also take a break at any time. And if you need to take a break, we'll take a break. A lot of my guests have utilized that and it has helped them out a lot. And if you don't feel like answering a question, I'm not going to get offended. I promise I'm not going to, because my priority is to make sure you feel safe. We have a fun discussion and we just vibe and chill and talk about trauma.
Love it. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Awesome. So there's a long list of scientific literature that categorizes how we form emotional attachments to our primary caregivers in order to ensure safety and survival. So attachment theory is a long studied concept that's getting a lot of attention these days. Clinical psychologist Coda Dureg, PhD, says it's one lens that we can use to better understand who we are and why we behave the way we do with the people that we love. I've done a lot of research over this topic for this episode because I'm so intrigued by attachment theory, because I feel like we develop different attachments to our different primary caregivers. And I kind of had 4 or 5 primary caregivers, if I'm being completely honest. And within those 5 individuals, I feel like I have very like individualistic attachments with different people within those subcategories.
Mhm.
Like my mother was very dysfunctional, very much so. If she's ever listening to my podcast, hi mom, I'm sorry, but she and I have never had a good relationship. It was always kind of for show, you know. And she does have bipolar disorder. I also have bipolar disorder, so nothing against people with bipolar disorder, but she would flip-flop. She had it very drastically. She also has narcissistic personality disorder, but she would flip-flop between loving me, just like love bombing the crap out of me, to discarding me, hating me, calling me the see you next Tuesday, calling me a cow, saying that I'm fat and ugly.
That's horrible.
And so I've noticed, like, once I got to college, I was more trusting of men than I was of women. So whenever women would give me compliments, I noticed that I did not did not believe them. I really didn't. And it always felt just wrong to me. And I've gotten out of that. I've unlearned that. But
Mhm.
I did notice that, and when I was doing some research, I was like, maybe this is why.
It's crazy how doing research and exposing yourself to attachment theory can create those major click aha moments about your past. I think everyone goes through that when they learn about attachment.
Yeah. So you have a whole podcast, and your podcast is called Dating Intentionally, where you talk about, dating do's and don'ts. Like, you don't want people to fall into the traps that you have prior. And I really want to understand how you bring in attachment theory into your podcast.
Yeah, I learned about attachment while deciding to break up with my ex. So that was, I would say it was like pretty late in the game. And okay, maybe I learned about it earlier, but I first read the book Attached about a month before I broke up with my ex. So it really played a huge part into my most recent dating journey, which is what the podcast was sparked by, right? I broke up with this guy I dated for 6 years, and then I spent a year dating like crazy, like it was my job. And my number one priority was to not end up with someone with avoidant attachment ever again. So, and I'm not like trying to shit on avoidant people with avoidant attachment, because it's like not really something it's not your fault if you have it. It's just like something that's a part of you, the way you're brought up. And I have it also, by the way. So that really, it does, the attachment style does weave its way into my podcast because of that, because it's like what drove me and drove a lot of my choices in dating after I went through all of that with my ex and everything.
All right. It's interesting because you're like, I'm an avoidant. I want to attract more avoidant, because then you're
I didn't
repelling
know
each
that.
other.
I didn't know that. Okay. So I like, if you know about attachment, your attachment style, like you mentioned, can change based on who you're with, and it can change. Like we have attachment with our friends, and family members and romantic partners. So it's like you could be avoidantly attached in one platonic relationship and then anxious in a romantic. It's like it's kind of fluid like that, which I really appreciate, but I think the internet doesn't sometimes get. So I think I was anxiously attached with my ex-boyfriend, which makes sense. That's like a very common dynamic. But when I was single, I was more avoidantly attached in general.
That is
Yeah.
very,
And
that is very interesting.
when I called myself out, my therapist was like, finally.
Oh my God.
I feel like it's like the best when your therapist has that reaction to something you say. Yeah,
You realize what I have known all along.
exactly.
Dude, I was never allowed to date growing up. Doesn't mean I didn't do it, but I was not allowed. It was strictly forbidden. I grew
Wow, that's okay. Like until you were a certain age, or
till I was adult. So
okay.
let me give you like a quick little backstory. So I grew up in a very conservative Christian household, and my father was raised by very conservative Baptist Jamaicans who were also missionaries. So he was the youngest of 4 boys, no sisters, and I was his only daughter, first child. And so my dad's approach to dating was never, you're not allowed, not happening.
I'm rolling my eyes for the listeners. Okay.
Yeah, which I get. My dad is now deceased. I won't get into that right now, but I had a really great relationship with my dad. He was very loving, very kind. He taught me a lot about respect, and he to this day was probably my most secure attachment ever. I never had any doubts that my dad loved me. I never had any doubts that I was important, that I had value, that I was talented, that I could do anything that I ever wanted. But when it came to dating or any friendship, my dad was very worried for me because I would get attached to people like that, like anybody. As a kid, I never knew a stranger, wanted to be friends with everybody, which my dad was very concerned about, which I get now as an adult. But he was very concerned because he was worried for me that I would get my feelings hurt. Which, of course, a dad wants to protect his daughter. A good father wants to provide and care for their children. And so once I started, I guess, developing romantic feelings for people around the age of 14, 15, I also started suicidal tendencies, self-harm. And that wasn't related to how my dad treated me, but how my mother treated me. Now, my mother was the exact opposite. She was very concerned with appearance, just like physical, how the world saw us, stuff like that. And I'm a chubby girl. So growing up, she would always want us, me and her, to do fasts and cleanses and juice diets.
That I can relate to. Yes. Same for my mom. Yep.
And, I get it. It's all in, she's just worried. And, I do have hypothyroidism. I was diagnosed at 8 years old with severe hypothyroidism.
Oh, okay.
That bad. So she was concerned on that level as well of I'm also allergic to corn, pineapple, shellfish. So I'm allergic to a lot of stuff. So she was also concerned on that level of every time we bought something from the store, I was always checking the ingredients list just because of allergies. But also she started getting me to check like calories, stuff like that. And so with my mother's dynamic, she wanted me to be thin, basically. And so I started developing a really bad eating disorder when I was around 14. I was in theater and dance. And so
that doesn't help either.
Yeah, it does not help. And so I remember stepping on a scale. I was 130 pounds, which is underweight for my size. I was the same height as I am now. I was 5'5", was 130 pounds. And still, my mom was like, oh, you can lose some more weight. You're a little chubby right here. She would come by and pinch my butt or pinch my side. And I tried very hard to not let it get to me. And I suddenly got very, very, very depressed because I didn't get into the show that I wanted to. And the girl that did get in was a lot skinnier than me. And so those things started clicking in my head of being like, oh, it's because I'm not skinny enough. And so I became a vegetarian and restricted all of my eating. And my dad thought it was because I liked someone and was trying to get their attention. And so this was one of the first times that I told my dad that I was suicidal, and he got very angry with me about it. And he's like, why do you care what other people think? Why do you care? Why do you care? You shouldn't care. You should not care what other people think about you, your body. You're a beautiful girl. I don't want you to date. You're not allowed to date. It's like, why? You're not allowed to date until you're 18. You're not allowed to date, period. And he got me a ring, a purity ring, because we were also deep into purity culture. He got me this purity ring, and it's actually 2 pieces, which my partner has the other half, and the halves connect to one another.
Okay.
So he got me that ring, and he said, I want you to appreciate yourself and love yourself before you can love anybody else, which is a good thing to say, but within the context was not good. And so I bring this all back to, I had a very secure attachment with my dad and a very disorganized attachment with my mother. And once my dad died, my mom kind of went off the rails, and it created a lot of horrible toxic patterns in me because I had just lost my dad. He was the only secure attachment I had. So I tried to date a lot of different people to see if I could find that same attachment. I became very anxiously attached to like people, friends. Like I was very afraid of losing people because within a year I'd lost my grandfather, my father, my other grandfather, and my cat that I'd brought with me to college. So
that's
within
so
a year,
hard.
I'd lost so many. And I was very anxious and very afraid of losing people. And I want to understand, you said you were in a relationship for 6 years with one person. Was it out of high school, out of college?
No, so it was a little bit after college. We met online on OkCupid in New York City. And it's like it started out as any typical relationship and ended, I would say, typical. Like we dated for a few years. We spent a year apart because he was in the army and he deployed. And I also quote unquote deployed to Colorado. I was like, oh, you're leaving? I'm leaving. And that we moved in together, but like that was where we went wrong. We should not have moved together. And we lived together for 3 years, and then I just realized that he was so wrong for me in every single way. Well, not every single way. He's a good person, but like not what I really needed, and definitely not with the attachment style that I realized that I needed to be with to have the kind of relationship I wanted. So I broke up with him, and he was like totally blindsided. He really didn't see it coming. And it was hard. I think I thought about it for 8 months before I actually did it. I think the one weird thing, I guess, is also that we worked together. Like I had a company that I have sold at this point, but he worked in my company as a contractor, and I really needed him. He had skills and he provided stuff to the company that I just could not really do. I couldn't do myself, and replacing him in terms of what he did in the company was really difficult after the fact. But like I did it. But that was I would have broken up with him sooner, I think, if we had not been working together.
Yeah. It sounds like a bit of enmeshment.
Our working relationship was better than our romantic relationship. So I think that is also part of why we stayed together for so long. Because like, oh, we work so well together. And I still believe that if we were, we ended things amicably, but we're not friends. But if there was like in some universe we ever worked together, like another life, I don't think I think it'd be fine. Like, yeah. But romantically, it just did not work. He was extremely avoidant. And, similarly to what you said, I was repeating the patterns I had with my dad with this person, trying to have a different outcome. Because that's what we do with attachment, right? We form attachment styles from our caregivers, whoever that is. It even could be friends in a young age. It doesn't necessarily have to be a caregiver. Like it can be just a kind of prominent figure that you are emotionally attached to and like create this dynamic. And it's like then we repeat that in adult, typically romantic relationships, trying to change the outcome and get from them what we could not get from the original caregiver in an insecure attachment dynamic. Obviously, with secure attachment, you're more just kind of repeating what worked, and it ends up usually, like for the most part, working ongoing. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And for me, so I'm bisexual. I've dated both
Same.
men and women. Vibes, let's go. Bye, pride. Okay. So I noticed that for women, I was repeating the relationship I had with my mom. I would go after seemingly very confident women who, yes, Gigi, I know, who would turn out to be extremely insecure, which no judgment, but they would take it out on me. And I've been cheated on in every single relationship I've ever been in. Every single one. I've been in over 20 relationships. Every single one. And it was not great because
really
because I would always feel like, oh, this is my fault. And so I was always the one getting broken up with because I was always the pursuer. So say if a girlfriend cheated on me, be like, okay, what have I done wrong? What have I done to not satisfy you? Because that was my whole thing with my mother.
that's like your survival strategy. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
how can I fix this? It's my fault. I did this. Like, what do I need to change about myself?
Exactly. So I have two younger siblings who I practically raised because, again, our mother was either extremely helicopter or very absent. Like some days she would not make us any food. She hardly ever made us any food, but she would not put together or buy groceries. And so it was up to me to figure that out for me and my siblings. And I don't think they ever knew that I was doing it all until I went away to college, and then they were like, there's no food in the house. Yeah, my younger brothers realized that very quickly, that who was providing food? Grace. Who was cleaning everything? Grace. So when Grace was at college, everything was shit. So as soon as I went to college, my mother said the only reason she'll pay for my college, which I didn't want to go to college in the first place, but she was like, no, you have to go to college, and you have to go to my college. So I went to Texas Tech University, Rackham, and she said, the only way I'll pay for your college is if you come home every weekend to clean. Now, I was a theater major, and on some weekends, we have auditions. So one weekend, I texted my dad. I was like, hey, auditions are this week. Do you think you can bribe my brothers into cleaning the house so I can do auditions? He was like, okay, fam, I got you. That was literally his text message. Okay, fam, I got you. And so I was like, okay, cool. In auditions, you have to turn your phone off. I turned off my phone. My phone was off for 5 hours because we're in intense auditions, dancing auditions, acting auditions, on script, off script. They would give us a script. We had 10 minutes to memorize to the best of our ability. So I was working my butt off. I was so excited because I really wanted to be in a play. And as soon as I turn on my phone has been blown up by my mother. Countless text messages, countless calls, calling me, see you next Tuesday. How dare I not come home and clean? I'm not paying for your college. And I was like, Dad, what am I supposed to do? He's like, radio silent. Do not talk. Do not text her. Go radio silent. Do not talk to her. You're just going to make it worse. I'm like, Dad, but
Are your
what?
parents together?
They never got divorced.
Okay.
So my dad's like, I'll figure it out. Just don't talk to her. Radio silent. He kept texting me radio silent, and then the Nacho Libre gif of doing this. And so I just left it alone. The next week, I come to class. The dean of students is at the door, and he's like, Grace, I need to call you into my office. It's like, okay. So I come into his office, and he's like, hey, we have not received payment for your tuition. It's like, what? And he's like, you are going to be kicked out of Texas Tech if we do not receive payment. You don't have FAFSA paperwork. It's like, but my dad and I filled it all out. It's like, it's not on your file. We don't have any paperwork. So I call my dad. I'm like, dude, what was going on?
That's so scary. That is like the worst call to get, I think, from a dean.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was in his office and he was so like, he looked so disappointed in me. I'm like, I don't know what to do. Because I couldn't get any financial aid because my parents made enough money, even though I was a 4.2 GPA student, 4.5, 4.2, teetered between there.
Mm-hmm.
I was on the president's honor roll for Texas Tech. Didn't matter. I was going to get kicked out because I didn't have tuition. So I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, I need you to help me. He's like, your mom is in the room. Hung up. I'm like, what do I do?
Right.
So I don't have any money. Like, I don't have money. I worked for my parents. Did they ever pay me? No. I worked for my parents. I did not have access to any funds. I'm having panic attack.
Mm.
And then my dad's like, tell me what your FAFSA login is. Tell me what this login is. So he went to the bank. He made his own individual bank account because he didn't have an individual bank account apparently. And he started paying for my college through there in installments. Like every month he'd send like a lump sum. And he would also send me money through that. Once the accident happened, when my dad was hit by a car, he didn't die yet, but he had a traumatic brain injury, so he had no capacity to be my dad anymore. My mom found this bank account and told me that I'd been stealing from her. She wanted nothing to do with me ever again.
Oh, wow.
So I have a huge insecurity, I've noticed, and I've worked with my therapist about this for the last couple months. I have this huge insecurity around money. I'm a disabled person. I have seizures and I have other disabilities that I won't get into, but my biggest one is I have seizures and my Gigi is a seizure alert service dog. She went to college with me. She graduated from Texas Tech with me. And so my money-making capabilities are very limited.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I've noticed that I have a huge insecurity in any of my relationships, especially in my current one, that I cannot bring money to the table. The only money that I make goes towards like my phone bill, paying off my car, paying off my student loans, and the money that I make is very limited. And so I've noticed my huge insecurity around, I can't make money. Does my value lie in the money that I can make? And then I spiral.
Yep, as one does.
As one does. And start to blame myself for being disabled, which is not in my control. No one who is disabled, I'm going to say this for the people, no one who is disabled wants to be disabled. You will never find a disabled person that revels in their disability, no matter what disability it is. I do not want to be disabled. I do not want to be like, oh, you're working so hard, you're a disabled person. That's not me. I'm working hard because I want to work hard, but my capabilities are limited. So one day, be on top of the world. I make bracelets. I have a little small business called Grace. Cool. It's called Gracelets.
Love it.
It's crystal jewelry. So I'll have one day where I can make 15 chokers. And then another day where I'll have like a severe migraine and I cannot do anything for the whole day. If I get out of bed, I'll have a seizure. I'll injure myself. And inflation, money is tight, dude.
Yeah, seriously.
It's not great. And I'm trying to get on disability for Social Security. And I'm calling every single day. I've filed an application in February. What month is it right now? November. Have they given me a decision? No. And so
wow.
I'm so stressed. It is a long time. I'm stressed out.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I can do. I have gone to 53 job interviews in this year alone. Not one of them have called me back. I have to go in with my service dog. They see that. They're like, nah, don't want to deal with that because I'm a liability. If I have a seizure on the job, could hurt myself, could hurt someone else, could damage product or something like that. So I am a liability. I get it. But it's not great.
No, not great.
And so since my one secure attachment, my dad, gone. My other semi-secure attachments, my grandparents, gone. And my mother, who is the most disorganized, insecure person I know, I've noticed that I'm not doing so. And I want to fix my attachments, but I really don't know how. I really don't know how, other than therapy. But you can talk to your therapist about these things, but they can't actually do the
No,
work for
it's
you.
like the difference between like reading a book about how to drive and then actually driving. It's like you can know what it takes to drive a car, but it's so when you're behind the wheel, it's very different.
So you alluded to your relationship with your dad created an insecure attachment style, which the three of them are insecure, right?
Yes.
There's only one secure one.
Yeah.
I want to learn more about that.
Yeah. I mean, I had the opposite, right? My mom and I are close. My dad and I are not. My mom's like secure. She, was my champion growing up. My dad is just, he is your typical, he's like your textbook avoidant. If you read Attached or any book on attachment, anything that describes an avoidantly attached person is my father. So that's like, he's critical. Vulnerability is extremely difficult for him. He cannot take a compliment, or he doesn't like inherently believe anything positive about himself, that like, I think, which took me a long time to really understand about people with avoidant attachment. Extremely self-reliant and independent. All these like traits, which again, I don't think they're all bad. Like, I don't think self-reliance is bad and being independent is bad. It's just like all of these traits support putting distance between yourself and the people close to you, because closeness equals pain for people with avoidant attachment. So that's my dad. So, growing up, I developed my own coping mechanisms, mostly lying to him. Yeah, so I didn't feel safe, right? I don't know, he's a boomer. Like, he grounded me. I remember being grounded at 5 years old. I think I had to write lines at 5 years old, I remember, for lying. And like, it was like one of those, like, I will not lie, like, like Harry Potter. No, I'm kidding. Not, not as bad as that, but similar. Like, I remember being just grounded and like kind of having that level of discipline from a young age. So I lied to, have my freedom as a child, doing things that normal children do. I wasn't like a troublemaker or anything necessarily. Not like more than other, you know what I mean? Just like the normal kid mischief shit. So yeah, that was like a big thing. Like, and the lying like continued through high school, and I definitely broke a lot of rules my dad had. When, like, I think I was kicked off the internet by my parents for a full year at some point. Like, didn't have access to anything except for like this is like I'm 31, so this is the days of like the kitchen computer.
Yes.
Where you have like one computer in like in your kitchen or in like a computer room. So I didn't have one in my room or anything. I didn't have a smartphone. So like, if I was using the internet, I'd be under my parents' surveillance, like in the kitchen.
Yeah,
so
same.
Yeah. So like he, with my dad, like, you really had to earn his love. And I think that's another thing with like a part of attachment styles is like, how do you get love and care from your caregivers? Like, in a secure situation, it's kind of more freely given to you, and you can expect it. Like, with your mom, you had no idea when she would show up as loving or not, and you were kept on your toes, so you could never feel comfortable. You could never settle with her. You never felt safe with her, probably. So it's like that dynamic. And when you have a secure parent, you just don't feel that way, like you said with your dad. So yeah, with my dad, just like, I had this pattern of wanting so badly to get his acceptance and love and just like praise, but if I did anything that he didn't like, he took it very personally. And that could have been like, I didn't practice my clarinet. Nothing to do with him, nothing to do with our relationship. But other than, I guess, you don't recognize this in high school, but like, yeah, he was paying for the lessons. So maybe he didn't feel like he was getting his money's worth, because I wasn't the star clarinet player of high school. I wasn't first chair. You know, I wasn't horrible, but you know, he took that personally, or like he still to this day will not call me. Like he doesn't pick up the phone to call me because in high school, I would let all of his calls go to voicemail, whatever. I like miss them, you know, and it happens so often that he doesn't call me or my brother. He'll text us, call me, or he just waits for us to call him because he's so hurt by the missed calls over and over. So
Mm-mm.
instead of addressing it and being like, hey, Talia, when you miss my calls, it hurts me. His response is, I'm never calling you. That's like what an avoidantly attached person does. There are also things we don't talk about, right? Because we've never been able to communicate how to talk about something in a way that doesn't hurt each other. You know what I mean? Like you can set boundaries with friends, be like, you know what? I don't like when you make comments about my weight. It's kind of doesn't, it's not, I'm not comfy with that. And your friend would be understanding and be like, okay, yeah, I can definitely do that. But with my dad, it's just, no, we just don't talk about this at all. Like we just don't talk about that anymore.
Yeah.
So everything just creates a lot of distance. So at this point now with my dad, our relationship is such that I call him twice a week just to make sure he's okay. He's like in his mid 60s, you know, and like just rattle off the news of my life. And that's kind of it.
At least you have some form of connection with him
Yeah.
still.
I've accepted where it's at. Like I also kind of know he's messy and a little toxic for me. So I'm okay with the distance because I know that like when I've tried in the past, it only results in pain for me. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to invite him to everything. I'm going to offer to visit him. It's the ball's in his court, right? Like I'm showing up, but he just, you know, he just
Yeah.
isn't. It's really sad.
And it's very hard too
Yeah.
to be doing, because honestly, oh my goodness. So Joey, my partner, um, he's talked with me in length about this because his dad was not in his life, his biological dad, not his stepdad, but his biological dad just he's seen him in the last 20 years like a handful of times. And he's like, my dad has always had the ability to call me. Like my mom told him my phone number once I had a phone. I've never changed numbers. He's always had the ability to call me. And Joey is a plumbing apprentice. So he's on a different truck with a different plumber almost every week, sometimes every day. And he's learning from these guys. And this guy that he knows just got into a divorce. And his kids are living with his ex-wife and the house that he built with her, and now he's in an apartment and he's just very angry. And Joey was talking to him, and the guy was like, well, my kids have my number. They can call me if they want to see me. They can call me. And Joey was like, I want you to rethink that. You're the parent. They're a child. The parent's role is to provide and care for the child. It's not the child's role to provide or care for the parent until the parent is at a point in life
Right.
where they can no longer provide or care for themselves. And Joey's like, my dad had every capability to call me, to reach out to me, to have a relationship with me, and he did not do it. You know? And so Joey has made the amazing effort of trying to reconnect with his dad this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Joey has reached the point of like, you know, if he does not call me, I'm not going to pursue this because it's not my job. You know, I've told him, I've reached out to him this year. I've met with him twice, being like, hey, if you want to be in my life, you can be in my life. But Joey's like, I think my dad feels so much shame around not being in my life for 23 years. And he just doesn't feel like he has the capability to do so. Joey's told the guy he was talking with, he was like, hey, you're the parent. It doesn't matter if they're teenagers. Doesn't matter if they don't pick up the phone. The parent has to pursue the child. I know you can be upset with them, but you should really be upset with your ex-wife because your kids didn't make the divorce.
Right. Exactly. Well, that, yeah. Also, just like I guess I have it, or I want to believe that adults, you know, it's on you to fix your wounds, right? Like you're not responsible for the wounds inflicted upon you. like the emotional and attachment wounds, but it's on you to fix them so that you can have healthier relationships and like full relationships, just like actual, deep connections with people. So I don't think my dad ever had a path to that. I don't think he ever had that modeled for him. It was never an option. He looks down on therapy. He believes that people choose their therapist based on what they want to hear, which is like, whatever. I'm like, okay, I think I explained attachment to him once, like in the last year, and it was kind of amazing because he was like curious about it. I didn't get that deep into it, but I did imply that our relationship when I was growing up affected me negatively in my current relationships, and I've had to like heal this. He did listen to that. Like he was more open than I thought he would be to hearing that, but he was a little like, what? Me? Hurt you? I'm the hurt. Like he sees himself as the victim, even though I'm the child in this. It's really weird. It's a little bit of a mind fuck sometimes.
Yeah, it is I love that word, mind fuck, because that is really how I feel about my relationship with my mother. And Joey has told me so many times, he's like, you will never be able to logic your way into understanding what that woman is doing, why she's doing it, how she's doing it, because it isn't logical. It's all based on her emotions in the moment, how she wants to deal with whatever. And he's like, she's a very wounded person. She has been a wounded person. She's a very wounded person. And I've tried to rebuild the relationship with my mom. I've reached out to her, and it's just another put down after another put down after another put down. And it's just, I can't do it anymore. I legitimately, there is no point, especially with narcissistic personality disorder. There's no point.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone in my family has narcissistic personality disorder. So I'm like, part of me wants, maybe, but it's not confirmed. So I'm not sure, but I can imagine how much of a mind fuck that is, because it's like, it just doesn't compute like for you.
Yeah. And with narcissism, you develop narcissism. No one is born with it. You develop it because you have a very insecure attachment with your parents, a very insecure attachment with objects, with things. And she was a hoarder my entire childhood, so much so that my dad bought a giant barn that could fit 4 horses, and it's full of just stuff. And then again, he bought a giant shipping container, and it's just full of stuff. And my house was always cluttered. There was always stuff all over the ground. And I want to bring it back to, I said I had like 5 main attachment attachment figures. I had my Mimi, who is my dad's mom, my papa, who's my dad's dad, and they lived a mile away.
Nice.
And they were kind of the ones who raised me and my siblings. They're my Jamaican grandparents. I did all of my homework at Mimi and Papa's table. Mimi taught me how to drive. I learned how to cook from Mimi. I learned how to clean from Mimi.
Aww.
I learned how to write from Mimi. Mimi taught me all of these things. My mother did not. And I love my Mimi so much, but she's very, very critical. She grew up in a very different time where women had to do everything for men. And so that was how I was raised, to do everything for men, to be the very domesticated,
the good girl,
I don't think I have OCD, but I do have compulsions to clean whenever I'm in a cluttered space. And so my mother used that to her advantage from when I was a very small child, that if my brothers ever left any toys on the ground, it was my responsibility to clean it up as the older sibling. And that went on into adulthood of me coming home from college to clean after my siblings. My dad didn't really grasp it, I guess. I don't blame him, but I would have to pick up his dirty underwear off the bathroom floor when there's a hamper literally a foot away.
Oh my God, classic man stereotype right there.
Yeah. I don't blame anybody for any of this, but I do acknowledge it. And I became a professional nanny for 7 years. Like, I was paid to watch after 4 little boys, raise those 4 little boys. And it was just, I would have done it for no money because I felt like this is my role. This is what I have to do because that's what I was raised to do. And I want to talk about like the different studies on attachment theory. There's a really famous one that comes from a 1969 experiment called The Strange Situation, which gave rise to the 4 styles of attachment that we know today. In the study, babies and their birthing parents, so their mother, played in a room together, and then the parent left and returned a few minutes later. And the baby's reaction was monitored. And from that study, we have the 4 attachment styles that were identified. So the secure attachment was the baby became upset when their parent left and then were comforted by their return. The anxious attachment was the baby became very upset when their parent left, and it would be very difficult to comfort them when the parent returned. The avoidant attachment, the baby would rarely react at all when their parent left and not react at all when their parent returned. And the disorganized attachment, where the babies had more erratic or incoherent reactions to their parents leaving or returning, such as hitting their head on the ground and freezing up. And it makes me want to cry because hitting the ground or hitting my head on stuff was my coping mechanism from a baby to now. Like whenever I get very elevated, I do have a lot of scar tissue. I've given myself like 15 different hematomas. I've had to be hospitalized because I've done this since I was a baby of just slamming my head against stuff. And when I started doing research over this, I'm like, of course I did this. Like they've done studies on this. Of course I did this because this is like the way that people cope, babies cope with being abandoned. Of course I react like this. I'm trying very, very hard to fix it. I still do it. I'm going to admit to that. I still do it. I'm trying desperately hard to fix it. It's going to take some time because it's
time. And it's not linear. It's like,
healing is not linear. It's very much a loop-de-loop. Like there'll be times where I'm doing really well and then just boom. And it does affect my relationship pretty severely because I'll have these very erratic reactions to different things, and I'm trying very hard to curb it, to stop it. And he is very worried about me. Like, I'm trying. I don't know what to do about it, But the baby's reaction to their parents' departure and return says a lot about how the baby is used by their caregiver, or is used to their caregiver attending to their needs. And those experiences affected the way that they related to others in their adult lives. So babies who had secure attachments to their parents knew that they had someone to rely on. They become concerned when they're gone and become comforted when they're back. But on the other hand, babies who learned that their parents aren't going to be attentive to their needs are less worried about their absence and less comforted by their return. They've learned that they can't rely on their caregivers to provide them what they need. And so the parent's presence or absence isn't that meaningful. And it sucks.
It really does suck. It's kind of like, it's almost like it's a roll of the dice, like what you have, whatever attachment style you have. But the good news is that you can heal it. Like this, like they call it earned attachment, right? So as adults, we earn our new attachment style based on the work we're doing or the relationships we're having and all that other stuff, and like healing within ourselves and with other and within a relationship. The cool thing about attachment style, which I think is like you do most of the healing when you're when you're in a relationship or in a friendship or whatever, like in a partnership, whatever it is. Like you can actually do more. You could do healing on your own, but the real healing is with people. And I think that's actually really cool.
Yeah, humans are social creatures. We are social creatures. We do not do well on our own. We really don't.
Yeah.
We're not meant to be hermits. For the hermits out there, I'm sorry that COVID has made you this way. You were not meant to be this way. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. My mother's father, my grandpa, He was a hermit. 100%. Would not leave his house unless necessary.
Mm.
And, you know, it was so bad that he had a stroke and no one even knew that he was missing or anything for like 3-4 days
Oh no.
until his brother drove to Oklahoma from another state and had to break down the door. And so my grandpa never recovered from his stroke because he was a hermit, because he never.
Yeah, we need community literally for survival.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I grew up with a lot of cousins. I have a lot of cousins and I love them very, very much. And I have brothers and I had so many friends. And when COVID happened, I felt like I lost everything because, my dad had a TBI, so I no longer had my dad. I was in college. I couldn't see my friends because COVID restrictions.
Mm.
My grandpa just died. My other grandpa was super sick. My cat started getting sick and then he died. I was so extremely isolated that I think it led to a lot of degrading of my mind. Honestly, I really do. Because I take a lot of I journal a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I look back on those journal entries of me just alone. My handwriting is so poor.
Mm.
Like I remember one entry in like July. I was like, life has no meaning. I don't want to exist.
No.
I wrote, my dad is never going to heal. Grandpa is dead. Clark, who is my cat, Clark is dead. Should I be dead? And it's very sad. It's so
really
sad.
I'm so sorry you got to that place.
I'm glad that I'm no longer in that place.
Yeah, me too.
And I know a lot of people who are probably listening have gotten to that place, because why are you listening to the Trauma Dump podcast unless you've had trauma? Like, and the only way that we can curb that is to be more mental health conscious, more trauma informed, to relate and heal one another. There's so many studies that are coming out that this is the loneliest generation.
Mm.
The generation that I am in right now. I don't think I'm a millennial. I think I'm Gen
I don't know how old you are.
I'm 23.
That's Gen Z.
Gen Z. So 2000 baby. We are the loneliest generation.
Mm.
Social media, and where men have less and less friends, women have less and less friends. And I want to help.
I know, me too. And it's tough. Like I'm 31, so like we being in California, a new place where I literally don't know anyone, it is really difficult. I am feeling it for sure. But I just got here, so I'm like, I'm gonna give it a real shot before I decide it's doomed. No, I'm not. That's not me. But yeah.
I think more and more people are so avoidant towards making new connections because, serial killers. Oh, we're afraid we're going to get murdered. Or
Yeah, definitely that. And I think people are somehow also mentally exhausted from all the social media to open up connections, and like even just getting out of the house and like going to a coffee shop that you've never been to before to meet someone is like a huge mental hurdle and like huge lift, even if you are functioning at your kind of whatever normal is. It's like it can feel like tomorrow I'm going to meet someone 30 minutes away, like a new friend, and we're like hiking to meet each other. She lives an hour away, so we're meeting halfway. That's like a huge deal. Like mentally I'm like, oh my god, that is so much work, but I know I have to do it. Like this is good social hygiene for me. So
yeah, yes. And for me, because this podcast, I've connected with so many people. I'm so excited to know you, so excited to know all of my guests. Like, I've made friends, and
yeah
everybody lives far away from me, which sucks, but I have made friends.
Yeah.
And I'm so blessed. Episode 16 was with Catlin. She and I have become best friends, and we call like every week, multiple times a week for hours on end. We do
That's
crafts
awesome.
together. I am so blessed to know her.
That's beautiful.
I feel so lucky. I really wish she lived closer so we could hang out.
You have an
But
excuse to visit each other.
we do.
Travel if you can.
Yes. As soon as Joey and I get our house in April, like after we get our house, I'm just like, I'm gonna have people over. I'm going to plan parties. I'm so excited.
I can feel the excitement through the screen.
Yes, I'm so excited. I try to plan monthly things in my apartment, but it's a tiny apartment. There's limited capabilities I can do here. Plus, if I get a noise complaint, I get charged $50. So
okay, that's an expensive party.
Yeah, that's not worth it. So what I really hope for those of us listening is that if you feel lonely, I want to encourage you to talk to people. I know it's scary. But it's necessary, but it's needed. And you can talk to anybody at any time. You can be at the grocery store and be like, oh my gosh, you got Cheez-Its? I love Cheez-Its. What's your favorite brand of Cheez-Its? It's as easy as that. Or you can go to a coffee shop and you're like, oh my goodness, that coffee smells so good. What did you get? I might get the same thing. It's another thing.
Love it.
It's relating to one another and trying to pursue another person. It doesn't have to be romantic, but try to pursue another person and get to know them and show interest in them. And, people love talking about themselves. So if you are interested in another person, you're actively saying, hey, what do you, that's a nice shirt. Sure. Like it can help. It really can help.
Yeah.
Vibes. So the attachment styles are secure, avoidant. Avoidant can be called dismissive or anxious avoidant in children. Anxious, aka preoccupied or anxious ambivalent in children. Disorganized, aka fearful avoidant. And avoidant, anxious, and disorganized attachment styles are considered insecure attachment styles. So a secure attachment style is defined by the ability to build healthy and long-lasting relationships, and it is the result of feeling secure with your caregivers from childhood and being able to ask for reassurance or validation without punishment. Signs of secure attachment styles include the ability to regulate your emotions, easily trusting others, effective communication skills, ability to seek emotional support, being comfortable with being alone. Now, I don't mean like alone for an extended period of time, but just like for a day, if you're by yourself, just being chilling with yourself, vibing with yourself, being comfortable in close relationships, the ability to self-reflect in partnerships, being easily able to connect with other people, the ability to manage conflict well, having a high self-esteem, and the ability to be emotionally available. Very few people I see nowadays have a secure attachment style. And when you meet someone who has a secure attachment style, they're like a gem.
Yeah, no, it's when you know it, you do see it. Yeah.
That's what they're like, oh, confidence is attractive. Yeah, it is. Because if you have confidence in yourself, you understand your capabilities and you're able to execute them. That is amazing. You are drawn to other people who have more confidence in themselves, especially if you are secure in yourself. You're drawn to more secure people because you're like, oh, I can learn from them. I could grow with them. I could be their friends. It's mutually beneficial.
It's also that like when you're with someone confident, you don't feel like you constantly have to tend to them and care and like, especially like if you are a secure person with an anxiously attached person, it could be like, oh, this person needs constant reassurance, constant validation. They are constantly worried something bad is happening, which again, it's not their fault, but that is the experience of an anxiously attached person. And it can be a lot for any partner of any attachment style to manage that.
Yeah.
So it can be really draining, which is something I ran into in my dating journey, right? Like I did actually pursue a relationship. It ended up being a month with a guy who had anxious attachment style. And, he was able to communicate with me. There was one day where we had a date planned and I didn't text him in the morning. And he texted me at like 3:00, like confirming our date. And he told me that made him anxious all day long because he didn't hear from me. And I was like, oh my God, like I felt so bad that I had caused him anxiety, like unintentionally. Just I was going about my Saturday, like, but it's a lie. It over the 1 month we got to know each other, he did need so much reassurance and validation that it became exhausting for me. And I just knew I wouldn't be able to be that person, Yeah.
I understand it. And, I feel like with my partner, Joey, we kind of teeter-totter between all of them.
Yeah, no one's like solidly one thing. We all have a mix, and different situations and trigger different styles. Yeah.
Yes. And Thanksgiving really triggers him to be very avoidant because he was an only child. And he tells me that he feels his mother always saw him as a chore or something to manage rather than provide and care for, that he always felt managed. And Thanksgiving we spent it with my family, which we all kind of have a very secure attachment to, at least my dad's side of the family. We all have a very secure attachment to one another. We can relate to one another, we can pick on one another, and it's something that he has never seen, interacted with in his childhood, in his adolescent years. It's not normal to him. And so he was being very avoidant. And my family is like, oh, water off a duck's back, that's fine. But my brother was like, hey, do you want me to go sit by Joey? And I was like, yeah, if you want to. He's like, I'm gonna sit by Joey, I'm gonna hug on Joey, make Joey feel loved. I was like, yeah. And my brother's like, I've noticed that Joey feels pretty uncomfortable around family gatherings. He's like, I don't think he feels uncomfortable when it's just me and him, but I've noticed that he feels uncomfortable. And he's like, I think it's only child syndrome. Like, that's part of it. Yeah. He's never had because I have a big family. When I say I have a big family, it's a lot of Jamaicans. It's a lot of people. There was like at least 40 people.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a lot. That's overwhelming.
Yeah. Which I can also understand. Overwhelming, avoidant. It's just a lot. And I don't think I've ever really been avoidant except when it comes to my mother. But I'm like actively having conversations with multiple people at once. We're chiming in on multiple conversations, and it's a little hard for him. So avoidant, dismissive avoidant, or anxious avoidant are all words for the same insecure attachment style, and it is defined by failures to build a long-term relationship with others due to the inability to engage in physical and emotional intimacy. In childhood, they may have had strict or emotionally distant or absent caregivers. So the caregivers usually have left the child to fend for themselves. They expect you to be independent. They reprimand you for depending on them. They reject you when you express your needs or emotions, or they're slow to respond to your basic needs. And that's him. That was his life.
Oh, really? Really?
And I don't know if his mother listens to my podcast. If you're listening, hi. But she had him when she was 18. She did the best she could. I understand that. And she was also in law school when he was a kid. I understand that. Law school takes a lot. You had a child very young. You did the best you could. Joey is extremely independent, and it has been very difficult for him to rely on me for anything. And it's anything.
I can relate. I have a really hard time asking for help with anything. Really, it's so, I rather pay people to do things. And I noticed that really late, like recently in my life, even especially with friends. I would always get a dog sitter than ask my friends to watch my dog, even if they've offered. It's like, I don't want to burden anyone Like, do they even want to help me? It's to the point where like even with my birthday, like I will schedule it 6 months out and like pay for the whole thing so that no one can even like say no. And it's like not an issue for anyone. Like that's how like little of a burden I've been trained to be by my caregivers in a way. It's
Yeah.
hard.
That is
But like
hard.
I've been making progress. Like last year before my boyfriend and I moved in together, he watched my dog for a week. And that was a huge deal for me because I would have just gone again, I just would have paid for a rover. And that, so he's been helping me rely on people a lot
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm doing my best to
Yeah.
prove to Joey that I
Mm-hmm.
am very reliable. And the only times I'm not reliable is when I am having uh hard emotions, which have nothing to do with him, have everything to
Mm-hmm.
do with the loss of my father figures and the neglect of my mother. And I'm still going through it. I'm only 23 years old. And, all of this happened within the last 3 years
Oh, wow.
of I was homeless for 4 months, like because my mother did not want me to live in her house after she um made me sign papers to move out of my apartment in Lubbock because she was like, "Oh, I'll pay you. You can stay at that house. It'll be
Hmm.
part of your payment. I need you to help me with your dad's businesses." And then she just decided she hated me for some reason
Ugh,
after
I'm so sorry.
after she now owed me like a couple $1,000s and she refused to pay me any of it and then she made me homeless. But I was still dealing with that because Joey was the one who brought me in, who let me live with him before we had an apartment together,
Mm-hmm.
which we have a apartment together. And I had a part-time job so I could pay some of the rent. I can't pay any of the rent anymore. And so we were in this weird place where I'm doing all the domestic work, which is a lot. We have 3 pets, so there's a lot of hair everywhere
Oh.
all the time. So I'm cleaning up after them. He doesn't have to scoop a litter box. He doesn't have to do the
Mm-hmm.
dishes. He doesn't do the laundry. He doesn't do any of that stuff. I'm doing all of that. And I don't complain. This is it's a good little feng shui we have here.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes he'll get a bit insecure about
Mm-hmm.
he's like, "Oh, I haven't done enough." Like, "Yes, you have. You're a plumbing
Yeah.
apprentice. You are up at like before dawn. You are driving over an hour to work. You are working in random extreme conditions
Mm-hmm.
underground.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're doing so much. You're learning so much. Like I this is something I want to do that I'm capable of doing. Let me do it for you. You can rely on me for this." He doesn't want money from me for the rent or any living expenses. That's not it. He's finally happy providing. And I'm not saying finally happy, but like he's finally reached a place within himself where he feels
Mm-hmm.
content with the ability to provide. And he's talked about it like it's like my dad has never provided for me. And I feel like it's almost a showing him like I can do it. I am a man. I can
Mm-hmm.
provide for my little family. And it's he is healing that part of himself of
Yeah.
like I was not provided for. I am doing the providing for.
Mm-hmm.
And some signs of anxious avoidant attachment styles are persistently avoiding emotional or physical intimacy, feeling a strong sense of independence, being uncomfortable with expressing feelings, being dismissive of others, having a hard time trusting people, feeling threatened by anyone who tries to get close to you. Like why do you why do you want to know me?
Yep.
What do you have
Yep.
to gain from this?
Yep.
Spending more time alone than interacting with others, or believing that you don't need others in your life, or commitment issues.
Yeah. I mean, I want to point out for people listening about avoidant attachment, like people who have avoidant attachment can fall in love and have relationships, but they are limited in other ways within that relationship. Like my ex, like we were committed for 6 years. We lived together. Like, we were in love. He said, "I love you" all the time. Like, it was kind of like he had that capability, but he was incapable of many things uh, I want to say like fielding my emotions, just listening to my emotions without getting defensive or shutting down. He was not capable of doing this. Like I know he wanted to, and it didn't mean he didn't love me, but he literally just did not have the skills. So it's like, just keep that in mind. If you're dating someone or you're friends with someone who is avoidantly attached, it's not that they don't love you or like they don't want to be with you. They literally just can't. Like there is something they've become so accustomed to pushing their emotions down and ignoring them and not tending to them, not addressing them, that they don't even know how at a certain point to interact with their emotions. It's like, why shutting down and putting up a wall is the only option, is the only thing that feels comfortable. And I read something recently about avoid attachment, which is like their MO is to feel comfortable at all times. So that will be putting the distance, putting up the wall, like anything that will maintain their level of comfort. Whereas securely attached people are okay with getting a little uncomfortable, right? Discussing emotions and with putting putting boundaries in place or anything like that, that helps relationships be better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can get through
The avoidant attachment style. You can get better. It's
yeah, but you
it's a
have
lot
to
of
be
work.
willing. You have
Yeah.
to, like, so after I broke up with my ex, he immediately, like the next day, went on psychologytoday.com to find a therapist, which is how I found my therapist. He like asked me, he's like, what was that site? It's like, oh, now you're doing this, like after years of being like pestering. That's how it works though, right? You're in a relationship, doesn't work out, you try to get them to go to therapy, they don't. The second you leave, they go. That's just, you leave them better than you found them. That's just the whole point. So he has been working on it from what I last heard.
That's good. I mean,
Yeah.
some
Relationships
relationships
are for you to grow and move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I hate seeing these things on TikTok of these women are like, oh, I made him the man he is today. You had influence. You did not make him.
No.
Or they'll be like, oh, well, he's a better man because of me, or something along to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And it really makes me very concerned because it is very possessive, and people are not possessions. That was something my dad taught me from a very young age, which I think also influenced him in wanting me not to be in a relationship till I was older, of being like, people are not possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave me this analogy of, he's like, in the world, I would like you to be a sheepdog. I was like, what's a sheepdog, Dad? He's like, there's three main categories of people, in my opinion. There are wolves, so people who want to get something from you. What do they have to gain? They'll do everything in their power to get it, and once they have fed off your carcass, they're going to abandon it. There's nothing they're going to do with those bones. There are sheep, the people that will get used, abused, mistreated, and keep following the pack, keep following the trends, are not independent thinkers. And then there are sheepdogs. And he's like, I would like you to be a sheepdog. I would like you to be mindful of your surroundings, of other people and their surroundings, of what situations they're getting themselves into. I would like you to be able to protect to the best of your ability other people. I would like you to be able to defend yourself, defend others, and still listen to guidance.
Mm-hmm.
And he would say, wolves cannot be guided. Sheep can be guided. Sheepdogs have the ability to have will and also listen. It's like the wolves have so much
Mm-hmm.
will, the sheep don't have will. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, you need to be this perfect balance of being able to be led, guided by, he was a Christian, by the great shepherd,
Mm-hmm.
led and guided, and also be able to have your own independence. And if you see something that is wrong, the ability to act.
Mm-hmm.
And I miss my dad so much.
No.
He was very wise. Everyone who has met him, he was a very wise, and he was very, very smart. Yes, Gigi. He was very, very smart. I know. Our neighbors, they're loud.
Mm.
He was very, very smart. And Gigi, you sweet. You Do you want to go out there? Do you want to go see? Oh, okay.
Little baby.
She's good. So the things that I think of with my dad, he was a provider, he was a caretaker, he was a very great dad. I don't know how he was as a husband because I was not his wife. I'll never know. I'll never know. I'll never understand his relationship with my mother because it felt like she used him a lot. And I bring that back because I really do believe he had an anxious attachment style with my mother, like very afraid of losing her. I remember several moments in my childhood where she would just get so angry and she would leave and we wouldn't see her for days. Like she would just go, just leave us. We wouldn't see her for days.
Wow.
My dad I've never heard him raise his voice to my mother, but I heard her raise her voice to him a lot. And so I bring this to the anxious attachment style, also known as the anxious ambivalent or anxious preoccupied. It's another type of insecure attachment categorized by fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, depending on a partner for validation and emotional regulation, and codependent tendencies. So with your parents, they may have alternated with being overly coddling and to detached and indifferent. They may have been overly or easily overwhelmed with certain things. They may have been attentive and then push you away, or they make you responsible for how they feel.
It's a lot of enmeshment.
A lot of enmeshment.
With the style.
And some signs of it are clingy tendencies. They're highly sensitive to criticism, real or perceived. They need approval from others. There are jealous tendencies, difficulty with being alone, low self-esteem, feeling unworthy of love, intense fear of rejection, significant fear of abandonment, and difficult trusting others. And it's real.
It's so real. Yeah.
It's so real. Like I what I relate most with is disorganized and anxious. I am very anxiously attached to, I guess, everyone in my family because I always have this fear of just rejection, that I'm not good enough, that nothing I'll do will be good enough. It was very performance based in my household, is like your grades, how well you did in school, how well I did in performances, because I was in performances from the age of 3. I was technically a professional actor from the age of 5.
Whoa.
Like,
okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I have 2 degrees in theater, so like performing was me.
Yeah.
Like I had to perform. I had to have a presence on stage. My dad would say sometimes, which, I don't think he ever understood how much this impacted me, but he was like, I don't care how anybody else does on that stage. You have to be better. You have to be better than every single person on that stage. You have to know your lines within the first week. It was very competitive. And I always had to, like, he made it a point that I was like, you always have to arrive 30 minutes before you're supposed to, with theater, with work, with everything. So I'm way early to everything in my life, which can be an inconvenience for hosts.
My dad is the same. He takes lateness personally. So I yes.
Yeah.
I grew up with the same values of punctuality and being early. Yeah. It's rough.
And I don't want to be anxious. I don't want to be afraid of rejection and abandonment. I want to change it. I desperately want to change it.
I think with anxious attachment style, like the work I've done to work on this part of myself has been a lot of like being my own secure base, which it's like if avoidant attachment people like lean too far on the self-reliant side and anxious attachment people lean too far on the like codependent side, it's like you do need some more of that self-reliance to balance out the need to depend on others for your sense of validation. It's not like you're and there might be some pendulum swinging, right? Like where it's like if you're really working on it, you might go the extreme and like be really self-reliant and then it balances out. But like that's how I worked. There was like realizing like, wait a minute, I'm enough for myself. I am like in my relationship with my ex, there was a point where I'm like, I have worked on myself. I have poured energy into my social life, my work, my health, like my mental health, like all these things. And it's like, you're the problem. Like to my ex, like you're the only thing in my life that's causing me this anxiety. You have to go. It was like to that point where I worked so hard on myself in that relationship where it's like, wait a minute, you're the thing that is what that has to actually I have to get rid of. Yeah.
Yes. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You're the problem.
Yeah. It's like, oh, the amount of anxiety that lifted from that breakup, and even now in my relationship with like a secure man, it's the difference is so stark. It is a huge contrast of like I experience much less anxiety day to day because of that. So I want to just say it's possible. It's possible. And for me, the path was leaning into myself more and like becoming my own secure base.
Yeah, I think my problem with that
lies in the fact that I am disabled and I do have to rely on others. And I think that also brings me a lot of anxiety because I'm very afraid of being a burden, which brings in the anxious, disorganized attachment, which is defined as having extremely inconsistent behavior and difficulty trusting others. Caregivers are inconsistent and are often seen as sources of comfort and fear by their children, which leads to disorganized behaviors.
Right. I think that lack of trust, I mean, the lack of trust appears in all three insecure attachment styles, but it's like even more so with the disorganized where you can't even really trust yourself at a certain point. And it's just like a trust spiral. Like,
Yeah.
Like you don't know what you can grab onto. So I get like it's extremely it's really hard, and I hope that you have compassion for yourself because like again, not your fault,
Yes, not my fault.
Yeah. And you're lovable and dateable, so just know that.
I know I'm lovable. Some days I don't feel like I'm a very dateable person. Like, would I date me? I don't
come
know.
on.
I don't know. Honestly, I feel like I have a lot of physical problems that manifest into mental problems that just cause a cycle of stress. And it's not fun. And the signs of disorganized attachment include fear of rejection, inability to regulate emotions, aka me, contradictory beliefs, high levels of anxiety, difficulty trusting others, signs of both avoidant and anxious attachment styles. People develop mood disorders, self-harm, and substance abuse disorder. So I found some correlation for the disorganized attachment style and people with bipolar disorder. I do have bipolar disorder. I was diagnosed at 14, 15, around that age. I've been on lots of mood stabilizers and antipsychotics and anti-seizure medications. And I don't like taking medication. I just want to be normal, but I have to take my meds. But it's so frustrating especially with people who suffer from mood disorders. Those are kind of intensifying any attachment trauma that you have.
Right. Okay. I can see that. I can see how that would happen.
Yeah, because anybody can develop any type of attachment trauma. That's attachment trauma is kind of universal. It's what brings us all together. The way our parents raised us fucked us up, But with things like disabilities, mood disorders, and chemical imbalances in your brain, they only intensify them because that is not universal. There is something genetically wrong with my brain and my hormone production that I have no control over. I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism at 8 years old. For those of you that don't know, your thyroid gland is the gland in your neck. You can't even see mine because it basically doesn't exist, but it is a butterfly-shaped gland in your neck, and it controls your metabolism, your digestion, your ability to regulate, like, whether you're hot, cold, your temperature. Mine does not work. It has not worked since I was 8 years old. They could remove it. It wouldn't do anything.
Oh, wow.
You
Okay.
know? And from that, because I have hypothyroidism, I'm a bigger gal. I'm a bigger gal, you know? And I do exercise and I do not eat a lot. And it's frustrating because if I was to lose weight, the only way for me to like lose weight, and I've done medical studies on this, would be for me to not eat for days at a time, like consistently for days at a time, which is not
Yikes.
healthy.
No,
Don't do that.
not an option.
That's not an option, especially when I do have low blood sugar and low blood pressure. I do still need to eat food. So it's this really, I'm a very complex case. I don't want to be a complex case, but I am one. And there's so many different things that I'm juggling. And it's very frustrating because there are only a few things that are within my realm of control. And
Right.
attachment is within my realm of control. That's something that I'm trying to figure out. But with the random constant problems of, oh my gosh, you just had a huge seizure and you are on the ground and you cannot pick yourself back up and you have to wait till someone can come help you, or I'm having a very, very bad mental health day. My mother has always called me a burden. I'm very afraid of calling someone when they're at work and needing help. I used to work at the Alamo Draft House as a concierge, with Gigi was behind the concierge desk with me, where I would help check in people, tell them what theater they were in, stuff like that. I only was able to work that job 3 months because I had constant seizures on the job. And one day I was just choking on nothing. Like literally my trachea closed.
No.
And
That's so
I
scary.
was suffocating and I could
Oh my
not
God.
breathe. And Gigi had to go get, like, she has a command with my hands to go get someone else. And I'm like on the ground and guests are coming around me. They're like, what is happening to this girl? It's terrifying.
Wow, that's so scary. Oh my gosh.
It's terrifying. And you look at me, you don't think anything is wrong. I look fine. But there's so many things that are wrong that I was like this constant cycle of I'm trying to improve. And then my body just sabotages me for no reason.
Yeah, right.
Like, why?
You have a lot to juggle, like you said. I mean, I think, yeah, I agree that attachment style is within your realm of control. And one of the things that you listed for disorganized, I think that could, like, if I had to pick one thing that I would focus on myself, it would be emotional regulation of emotions, because that's not even just like an attachment style thing. That's just like an adult and maturity thing that affects, like, can positively impact your relationships, any relationship, not even romantically. And I know that, like, your body's like throwing curveballs at you, but it's like, on one hand, that sucks. It mostly sucks. On the other hand, the silver lining is like you have the opportunities to use what you're learning and apply it to these situations.
Yeah.
In a way that some of us can't. like, so there is opportunity. Obviously, never put pressure on yourself to do that. That is ridiculous. But it's like, it is there if you were up for it.
Yeah, and I am up for it. I want to get better. And I think this podcast has been a constant, I guess, little dude on my shoulder going, keep going,
Yeah, you're doing
because
great.
I'm helping myself. I'm sharing my story. I'm talking to other people. They're sharing their story, and it's providing an outlet, also a creative one, for me to do video editing, audio production. I'm doing all of it, and I'm also helping my mental health. And hopefully, for those of you listening, I'm helping you guys too. And I think it's pretty great. If only I was making money.
I believe it'll come.
I do too. I just think consistency is key, and that's what I'm doing. And if I really wish money was not an object in this world. I hate it. I wish we lived in a place where we could just barter and
Yeah.
trade.
Mm-hmm.
I would thrive. I would
Oh
thrive.
yeah. I believe it.
I would do so well because I make really cool things and I paint. I'm a creative. I'm a
Mhm.
creative. Creativity is destroyed under the capitalist regime.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
Yeah.
whatever. It's whatever. But according to a 2018 study, women score higher on anxiety and men score higher on avoidance when it comes to relationships. But these gender differences are small and don't really have a direct impact on attachment style. But it is interesting to point out. And I really do think it's in the way that women are raised versus men are raised. You know, women are raised to fill the void, as it were. Like anything that is lacking, like I definitely was raised that if you are sitting at a dinner table and someone's glass is empty, you fill the glass. Doesn't matter who it is, you
Mhm.
fill the glass. If I was always taught that a mother's, by my Mimi, not by my mom, I'm going to mention this, by my Mimi, who did raise me, I was always taught that a mother feeds her children and her husband first before she ever puts anything on her plate. Women are taught to be caregivers. Men are not necessarily taught that as often as I would like. I wish there was more of a balance
Me
in the
too.
way that we raise men and we raise women. And I'm hoping that the next coming generations do the
Yes,
work.
there's a lot more awareness, a lot more. I agree with you. I think about that a lot. I think also another contributor is that the way that we're socialized to handle emotions, like it's more acceptable for women, girls, to be upset, and like it's like okay, but then if you are a boy growing up and you are showing that you're upset, you're like made fun of or told to not do that, or boys don't do that, or like
Yeah.
there's
Boys
less
don't
space.
cry. Why are you
Right, there's like less
crying?
space for boys growing up to have these emotions. But I think that's change. I hope that's changing. But I think about my dad, and I think about the men I've have been dating. I don't think that they've all had the chance to navigate their own emotions in a safe way growing up, the way that, as much as women have.
Yeah. And I have this special circumstance that I helped raise 4 little boys. I had that
Are these
amazing
your did you mean your
opportunity.
brothers, or
No,
is
no.
this okay? A different family, right? That's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shout out to the Ivies. I love you. The boys are not watching, but maybe Colette. Love you, Colette. She is almost like she's the fifth. She's almost like a second mother to
Aw.
me. But I helped raise her 4 boys for 7 years. The youngest is 8 now. So I was there doing it all, potty trained them,
They're lucky to have
and
you.
I miss them a lot. I was there every single day for a very long time, and it was time for me to move on and just have a life of my own. But I do miss them. They are my second family. But I had that amazing opportunity to help these now young men navigate their emotions when they were angry. I was like, yeah, you're angry for a reason. Don't act on the anger, feel it.
Mm-hmm.
I had that, like, I've never once shamed them for crying. I've never once shamed them for being angry. And it was such a unique, vulnerable experience that I know for a fact that these young men are going to go so far.
I'm
I am
really excited to see the TikToks where you're like, I made that man who he is.
I did not make them who they are. They made themselves. But I influenced the way that they were raised and how they're able to deal with big emotions. And I did homeschool them.
Nice.
So
Wow.
I helped out a lot. I want to think of myself as like aunt, big sister. But I did not make them the men they are today. They're not men yet. The oldest is 14. But
Getting there.
they're getting there. And it's crazy to watch them grow and become individuals. Like there's a significant part where they suddenly awaken. It's weird. I've noticed it for every kid.
That's crazy.
Just like being self-aware of like if
whoa,
I
I'm a person.
do something, I could hurt somebody else. Because that's also a really big thing with boys is a lot of boys are taught that if you have a problem with somebody, you're going to fight it out.
No.
Yeah. And even their dad, sorry, Chase, love you. But he was like, if someone picks on you, pick on them back. I'm like, no. De-escalate. Let's de-escalate. De-escalate. But I did teach them how to de-escalate within their own family dynamic, their own sibling ship, of being able to de-escalate with one another, because that is very important with little boys, is being able to recognize, oh my gosh, I've hurt you. I'm sorry for hurting you. And then not seek revenge or vengeance.
Right.
Because seeking revenge is a natural human emotion, but I feel like for men, it's more acceptable
yes.
to seek revenge or pay back if someone hurts you. And I really want to caution listeners, if you have been hurt or mistreated, do not try to hurt them back. Do not try to get even, because an eye for an eye makes the world blind. And it's not good. I feel like with the Palestine and Israel conflict, it is really super prevalent because, I've known about this conflict. This conflict has gone on since Abraham. It really has. And it's all an eye for an eye. It's like, oh, they kidnapped, so we're gonna bomb a hospital, and oh, they bombed a hospital, so we're gonna shoot up. It's worse and worse and worse and worse, and thousands of children are dead.
I'm not going to comment. I'm Israeli. And I have family in Israel who have died.
Yeah, I am so sorry for your loss.
Yeah,
because it's not the Israelis that are doing this; it's the government.
Yeah,
it makes me so upset. I do have some Jewish heritage, my grandfather's side, and he would go into we don't pick a side in my family. Like there's no side. We're all just humans.
mm-hmm.
There's no side. There's no reason for any of this. And it makes me so desperately sad, but it's that idea of, you've hurt me, I'm going to seek vengeance, I'm going to avenge this.
it doesn't, there's no end. It doesn't work. It doesn't work out. No.
There's so many people are dying for what?
I know. It's really sad.
It's so sad. And I am so sorry for your loss. It's horrible.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot. It's been a lot.
I feel you. And it's flooding my feed. And it also, like, never before in history do we as a society are aware of so many different conflicts that are happening all around us because of
I
social
know.
media.
We're
The
not
cons-
meant to. We're not built for this. Like we're really are like not mentally built for this at all. No.
we're not. We're not meant to deal with so many stressors, so many conflicts. And that is also where dysregulation can occur because your stress hormone, your cortisol,
Mhm.
it's constantly rising for these stressful events and you can't do anything with it. And I was talking about in the end segment, because I record the beginning and end segment for each episode before I do the interview. But I was talking about in the end segment about how cortisol affects our bodies and the wheel of emotion, startled,
Oh yeah.
scared, talking about those. And we're not meant, we did not evolve
No.
for this. This is not what we're meant to do.
No. Definitely not. I mean I've learned to put it down over yeah. I've been on the internet for a while. I've learned what to do at this point. Like yeah, to have good healthier boundaries around this stuff because we are really not built for it.
No, we are not. What do you think of the saying, I transmute my pain into purpose?
I was thinking about this. I saw it in your notes. I mean, I do feel like that resonates with me. Like I feel like I mean, well, for me, it's not just my pain because I don't want to sound like, I'm not trying to sound like toxic positivity here, but I do turn my pain into lessons. Like I find gratitude in the pain because I feel like I can learn from something. And then not just me learning, but like other people can learn from that too. And I do feel like that is my purpose on this earth. Like I love inspiring people. That's why I love having a platform online. I want to use everything I've learned and just be like, look what I can do. And look, you can do it too. You know, here's how you can do it too, even though that's not always how it works. But you know what I mean? It's like, here are my experiences. Here's what I'm going to take. You take the nuggets, go off and do with them what you will.
Yeah, and it's so wise because the only thing we can control is ourselves. We cannot control other people. We cannot control how they react, what they take from what we're doing. All we can control is ourselves, our reactions, and our reflections upon different things. Because sometimes you'll have a reaction in the moment and you'll be angry and you'll stew over it. And then you'll be like, oh, oops.
Yeah.
And move forward and apologize. I wrote that because I ask every single guest, what do you think of this saying, transmuting pain into purpose? Because my grandmother, my mother's mother, has a lot to say over that. And she would lovingly talk my ear off about you have to keep going. Like you've lost so much. Don't let it destroy you. Don't let it end you. Use it for your purpose. Use it to connect with other people. And you can have two people who witness the same thing, and one is angry about it and lets that anger manifest and control them, make them bitter. And then you can have another person that has that anger, reflects upon it, heals from it, and takes that lesson, like you said, and moves forward. And a wonderful guest on our podcast, her name is Erin O'Brien. She's a licensed professional counselor. She's like, anger is a healthy emotion. It means you've been wronged. What you do with that anger is what will define your character moving forward.
That is so powerful. That's a very powerful, mindset, reframe, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. I love her. She's going to be on again on another episode, I think episode 25.
Nice.
Or episode 23.
Sweet.
Vibes. But I'm so excited for this podcast. I'm so excited to learn. I'm so excited to grow. I'm still developing technically in my brain. You don't stop until you're 25. I have 2 more years.
Got 2 more years. Make them count. No, okay.
So get so many more little waves in my brain. But the podcast purpose is to identify trauma, how we can help heal ourselves and others. And the saying of the podcast is trauma is not who you are, it is what you go through. I want to ask you this question. Would you consider what you've gone through as trauma?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's taken a lot for me to even say that or like even admit that. Because for a while I did not identify with that of like, oh, no, I'm fine. I don't have trauma, but I do. I asked my therapist, I was like, is there ever a point in life where we have not experienced trauma? And she said, no, going through the womb, being born, however you're born, is traumatic. And that made me feel better. I'm like, okay, everyone on this planet has experienced trauma and I'm not. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, that's very true. Birth is traumatic.
Yeah.
My mom had to have an emergency C-section because my
Right.
umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck and I was dying.
Traumatic as hell.
Traumatic as hell. Is it how I developed really weird coping mechanisms? Maybe. But from our conception, that could also be traumatic. You know, everyone goes through traumatic events. It's what we do with that traumatic event that can either help us, heal us, or harm us.
Mm-hmm.
You know, trauma does initially harm us, but we can heal from it.
Yes, 100%. Like yes, I'm saying you can absolutely heal from it. I don't know if it'll ever be 100%, but you can do it.
Yeah. So I have like a couple more questions. I want to know how you became a dating coach.
I just decided to do it one day. Like I'm not certified in anything. I just was like, okay, I have been writing about this topic for over a year. I've read dozens, if not like about 100 books on this. I've been in therapy for 6 years intensely. Like I'm not fucking around in there, you know. I'm taking risks. I'm getting uncomfortable, and I just, I was like, okay, I want to teach people how to date. I was dating. I was 30, and I was like, why am I the only person having fun? I know part of it is having thin privilege and like, just living in Seattle, like where I was and all that stuff. And I believe other people can have fun doing this. I can't be the only person out here having a great time. And that's why I wanted to be a dating coach. So I'm like, I want to help women have fun in this process and not it be such a drag, Yeah.
Yeah. And how has your daily routine changed because of your experiences?
I am a lot kinder to myself. I am working on that. I think growing up with my dad's like critical voice in my head and my mom's, I used to be so mean to myself. So I think being kinder, what that looks like, how that translates, I embrace rest more. I embrace doing nothing more as someone who constantly wants to be productive in this capitalist society. It's like it's like how I'm programmed. So I would say that's how my experiences have really just like more compassion, slowing down, allowing myself to rest. And it affects everyone in my life more positively because if I'm less stressed, then I can like show up for people in my life better.
Yeah. How are you feeling right now?
I felt good. I love this conversation. This is amazing. You're amazing. I admire you so much. Seriously. And I know I'm like saying this to you and I'm like, she doesn't believe me. She told me that being complimented by women, she doesn't trust it. Like, no, believe me.
I'll do my best. I'm trying to reprogram my mind.
Yeah.
I'm doing my best. I
know I can't control your reactions, so here we are.
I really appreciate your compliments because I mean, I admire you. You are already doing the damn thing.
Thank you.
You're working at it, you're improving, you have a platform where people, want to know what you have to say. And it's very inspiring. I think of you as, I'm very selective with the people who I ask to be on the podcast because I want to have a conversation that is productive. And I feel like a lot of podcasts, not yours, but a lot of podcasts are very argumentative and they're not productive. It's more like dramatic. There's no solution really.
Right.
And that's kind of what I want for this podcast to be like. We're talking about the problem. We're talking about why the problem exists. talking about solutions and resources to solve the problem. And I really appreciate your platform. I love seeing your little face pop up with the story.
Thank you.
It's very great content.
Oh, I appreciate that so much. It warms my heart. I'm so glad I got to be in this space with you and have this conversation.
Hell yeah. So going forward, how can I support you?
I would love it if you continue watching my stories and all that stuff. Thank you. Yeah, anyone who's listening can find me on Instagram at dating.intentionally. My podcast is called Dating Intentionally, and I'm out there serving, straight up, no nonsense dating advice to navigate the modern dating world. So that's how you can find me.
Speaking directly to our listeners, what would be your message about healing attachment trauma?
It's not linear. Go slow, have compassion, and, look back at your progress every once in a while, because it can be so slow that you feel like you're going backwards sometimes, but you are not. I can assure you, you're not going backwards, and you can do it. You can do this.
Hell yeah. Do you have any resources or recommendations you'd like to share?
Yes, I think my favorite book for attachment, I mentioned the book Attached by Amir Levine a few times, which is okay. I think the better one is called Wired for Love by Stan Tatkin, I think his name is. And I like this book more. It's a little friendlier to avoidantly attached people, where attached kind of isn't. But I would say the difference is that Wired for Love is like probably easier to read when you are in a relationship, because it's more geared towards folks who are actively in one. But I think if you're single, you could still get a lot out of it.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Of course.
I really, really appreciate it. And I'm very proud of you.
I'm proud of
It's
you.
a lot. Hell yeah. Thank you.
All right.
At the end of every episode, we have a segment called Memes of the Week, where amazing, amazing people from our Discord server share their favorite memes. So here are our Memes of the Week. At the end of every episode, we spin our wheel of emotions to learn a new feeling and how it correlates to my trauma. So let's zoom in real quick. Ooh, that was out. Bro, my camera does not love me today. But that's okay. That was a good spin. It landed in between startled and scared. We're gonna go with that. Ooh. So, trauma really affects the fight, flight, freeze, fawn response, right? When we get scared, how we react to being scared. So it kind of intensifies that fear. So your fear hormone, or one of the fear hormones, is an adrenaline hormone called cortisol. Your adrenaline hormones, your adrenal glands, come from the little triangular little dudes on top of your kidneys. So your adrenal glands are right next to your legs almost. And so whenever we're really stressed, like we got to take it back to a long time ago when we lived in caves. Stress usually came from something hunting us or something bad going on. So we had to run, right? That's usually where we get the stress from. We're afraid, stress keeps us alive, keeps us going so we can carry on to the next thing. So stress actually shuts down your digestion, and it floods a bunch of chemicals in your body to make you do. Now, because we live in a society where we're not being hunted, usually, unless there's a serial killer, but usually we're not being hunted. The things that stress us out are work, school, family conflicts, friend conflicts, stuff like that, that are not usually life and death situations. So humans over time developed different ways of dealing with stress. So fight, flight, freeze, fawn. When you are startled or scared, that is that initial boom of something is happening that I did not expect, and what am I going to do with this? So people who have been through traumatic experiences like myself have a higher expression of stress, anxiety, fear. Those stressful, startled responses can be a lot bigger for things that don't seem like they should be that big, right? So say you're coming into your house and you hear a loud bang, that can set you off to be like, oh my gosh, what is happening? So something that we really have to focus on whenever we are going through trauma and trying to recover from it is acknowledging how we are reacting and taking that into account and either accepting that reaction or doing things within our realm of possibility, within our realm of control, to work towards different reactions. So for me, I have a really big flight response whenever I'm stressed out. And this could be like a tiff with my boyfriend. I want to run. I have to stop myself and say, hey, I'm not in any danger. I'm okay, I'm safe. Have that self-talk and move forward with it. Your stress responses are key to your survival, and we should stop, being angry with ourselves for our reactions. Your reactions are human. They keep you alive. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode. If you liked this episode, please hit the like button, please hit subscribe, and please comment down below what other episodes you would like to see from us on this podcast. The next episode is called Discord Confessions. So if you have any confessions that you want to share anonymously on our podcast, connect with us over on Discord. Thank you guys so much for watching. Just a quick disclaimer. I'm not a licensed health professional, but I love you so much and I care about you and I really would like to be your friend. All right? I really would. I mean it. Special thanks goes out to all of our Discord users. You guys are the best, and your encouragement has helped me carry on. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. If you'd like to support our podcast, we have a Patreon. Different tiers can get you a bracelet that is a handmade bracelet made by Grace, me. Or you can check us out over on Bonfire and get custom apparel designed by yours truly. Any support helps the podcast out so much. So if you feel compelled to, please support our podcast. Remember, you are capable of a fulfilling life in spite of your circumstances and your trauma. May you rise again from the ashes and be filled with peace, hope, love, joy, and understanding. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Mwah! Bye-bye!